This video is for IB students who are about to start their extended essay or they're midway through their extended essay and they want to know what to do, the requirements so they can get top marks for their extended essay. This video is a part of a series of videos about the extended essay and the focus is mostly on digital society. However, you'll find the information here is applicable to a lot of the other Group 3 IB subjects. So first of all, what is the extended essay? It's a 4,000 word essay. You're supposed to spend about 40 hours. Now, one of the Viva Voces I just conducted with one of my grade 12 students who just finished, I asked them the question, what advice would you give to somebody who's about to embark on this task? And his advice was quite wise. He said that he allocated about 1 hour each week to work on his extended essay, in particular with the writing part. So what he would do, he'd write for about an hour, and then he'd have a break, and then he'd stop. Now, what happens during the break time, still a bit of readings occurring, some research, some ideas, synthesizing of ideas, and then when he came back to it the week after for another hour, he'd reread what he'd written, make some improvements, make some adjustments, and then start on the next section. And in this reflection, he talked about how it actually wasn't very stressful or painful at all, the whole process. By just chipping away at it 1 hour a week, he said he had plenty of time to spare for proofreading at the end, but it also had time to he was never feeling stressed. So this is the kind of advice he gives students who are about to embark on this extended essay, and I'm sharing with you now. So imagine that, you've got about 40 hours that you're going to be investing in this. Now there's also a 500 word reflection section that you need to submit it as well. Now this, from my experience, this part tends to get a little bit neglected because so much brain power and effort goes into the extended essay that students often think, oh, it's just a reflection, I'll just write a few words here. But just keep in mind with your reflection, this is actually being assessed. This is criterion E. So when you're actually doing your reflection, you've got 500 words. Use those words really carefully, and I'm going to show you what to write in those reflections so you can get top marks for the criterion E section, which is the reflection. Okay, what else? Now just keep in mind the big picture. The extended essay is a chance for students to engage in independent research. Now, because you're doing this independently, it doesn't mean you're totally alone. Part of the research process is talking to other people, talking to experts, talking with your peers as well. So don't think you have to do it in isolation. But when you think about the word independent, you are writing this essay. And because it's independent, make sure you choose a topic that you're really interested in, because you're going to be spending a lot of time on it. And you don't want to be spending time on something that you're only kind of half interested in. So choose your topic wisely and don't rush into it. Spend some time thinking. And don't be afraid if you start on your research and you think, hang on, this is not right, be prepared to adjust or change. That's part of the research process. Now it talks about having intellectual initiative and rigor. Now the aim of this is all about preparing you for university. So it's a university preparation task. So when you're writing it, don't think of it from a kind of high school student. Try to put your mindset in and approach it as if you are a university student. So try and lift your lift your focus and your approach. So you're trying to write this as a university student for a university kind of professor or task, and that'll help perhaps get you in the right mindset. Second bullet point here, the aim of it is to develop your research thinking, self-management, and communication skills. Now, because the aim of this is to develop these skills, the IB is not expecting you to have these skills, so you are developing them. Now, this is also something you need to mention when you're doing your reflection. They want you to provide evidence that you have indeed developed these skills and that these skills have actually benefited you as a student as you're doing other research tasks in the IB program. The third bullet point, and we've already talked a little bit about this, is the reflection process. Now remember, the reflection process is a couple of key things you need to write about. One is about some of the skills that you've developed, like self-management skills, thinking skills, research skills. So you talk about the skills you've developed in your reflections. Next thing is, what have we got here? This video is just going to be short. It's just kind of like an introduction But I want to focus in on when you're doing your written task, and this is the approach that I feel most comfortable with, is have the assessment criteria in mind before you start writing. It's difficult. I find it more difficult from my experience as a student, as a learner, but also coaching and helping students, is once they've written something, it gets a bit hard to adjust it later to match the assessment criteria. So if you're constantly aware of the assessment criteria while you're writing, this is a better approach. Now, if you're aiming for you're aiming for top marks, what we're expected to do is have effective research skills. So somehow are you researching? You've got to demonstrate that you've got good research skills. It's focused and it's well-focused research, but you've also got an appropriate research question. Your research question is really, really important, and don't expect to get it right the first time you put pen to paper. Your research question is going to change and change and change, and should change and keep developing, changing words, rearranging words, changing that phrase. What about this? How does this sound? Is this better? Because your research question is a really important part of this task. You've got to get it right and be prepared to keep editing throughout the process, because basically what your research question is, no matter what you do in your essay, everything should be linked back to your research question. And this is another problem I've found with students. Sometimes they get off track a little bit, and you're not going to get top marks if you get off track from your research question. Now, this is another reason why it's mentioned in the guidebook that you put your research question in the header or the footer, so it's on every single page. So you're constantly aware of it. So when you're setting up your document, I'd recommend that straight away. Get your research question, put it on every page in the footer. And then when as you go through the research process, if you find your research is changing a little bit, revise your research question. And another good little method to test if your research question's on track is check with other people. Check with your peers, check with your teachers, get their feedback. But also, be prepared, have an open mind, because people will give some feedback, and sometimes the feedback they give you don't want to hear, but maybe it's what you need to hear. But also, by checking with a few people, there might be somebody who gives you some advice, but everyone else gives you different advice, and you realize, hang on, I've got to disregard that one. So be open and be prepared. You've got to think about this process. And be open to change, to keep changing it. It's what in the design world they'll call the iterative process. Be constantly changing, tweaking, changing it, making little bits of improvement based on how the research is progressing, but also based on some feedback from friends and family. What do we got? The chosen topic. So you're supposed to be demonstrating effective engagement. Engagement is also part of criterion E. So when you're writing your reflection, you need to convince the reader of your reflection that you were fully engaged. So how can you prove that this subject was something that you're fully engaged in? You've got to get that across in your reflections. If you want top marks. Now you also need to talk about your relevant research areas, methods, and sources. So we're shifting beyond just writing a descriptive essay, but you're a researcher now, and you've got to talk about the research that you conducted, or if you found a source, how did they conduct the research, and what were their methods? So you need to just be aware you're not talking about the topic, but you also need to talk about the research methods and analyze them as well. So when it comes to primary research, so if you conduct an interview, talk about how you interviewed, when you interviewed, who you interviewed, but also analyze it. Talk about some of the strengths of your interview, but also talk about some of the things that maybe were problematic. So this is you critically analyzing. Now, when it comes to same thing if you conducted a survey, talk about the results of your survey, talk about the methodology, how you conducted your survey, talk about some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses. Now, secondary research is where you're going to be getting most of your information from this extended essay. Now, you've got to shift beyond just describing some of the things that you found out when you were doing research to talking about the body of work that you have found, the source, then talk about how that research was conducted, and then analyze this as well. What the IB is trying to get you to do is go beyond the whatever you read, you believe. When you get the information, you analyze the source. You analyze how this research was conducted. So this needs to permeate throughout your extended essay as well. So you're talking about what you've discovered, but also how the research was conducted. Now, you need to have excellent knowledge, topic. So demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. So one of the easy ways to do that, if you talk about some kind of a topic, there may need a few words to, first of all, demonstrate you know what you're talking about, but also with a little bit of a description, just with a few words. If you mention a key term, but then explain what that key term is just with a few words, you're actually including the reader and engaging that reader as well. So you're reader conscious. So when the reader is reading your essay and they find some kind of a key term, and then they read a few more words and realize and understand what that key term is, it's a much more engaging essay to read, because you're not assuming that the person knows your topic. You're actually inviting any reader to read your topic because you're using key terminology with a little explanation, and then you dig deeper. So try and do this throughout. When you drop a key term, demonstrate to the reader, to the assessor, that you know what it is, but explain it to a reader who may not know what it is. Okay, what else? Relevant conclusions. So as you do your research, you're going to be drawing some conclusions. Now, conclusion is actually a key part of the assessment criteria as well. So make sure there is some kind, after you've done a piece of research or the whole body of research, that you are drawing some conclusions from it. But the next bit here is it's also analyzed. So here are some of the conclusions based on this study and this study, but then you analyze your conclusion as well. So this is demonstrating some higher level thinking. Another section that's important is just about your presentation. So as you're doing your research and you're putting words together, it's going to be a mess. Just be sure to take some time at the end before you submit your final product to structure it very nicely, very neatly, very well organized. I recommend using subheadings because that helps the reader understand what this next topic is, but it also helps the assessor. So I would recommend subheadings, some subheadings in different sections, and I would recommend putting these in quite early in the process because it helps structure your own essay. Now, which brings me to the next point, your research question. If you want to test how good your research question is, put it into some AI tool like ChatGPT or Claude, and just ask the AI tool, please provide an essay outline for this research question, and you see what appears. Now, if it produces a really nice essay outline, you know your research question is good. But if the results are not so great, then you know your research question is not so great. Or if you just simply plug in your research question into a chatbot AI tool and ask for it to answer it, and if the answers come back and they actually make sense and it's all on track, you realize you've got a pretty good research question. But if the results from your question are a bit odd, you need to change your research question. Okay, so structure and organization is very important, and it's going to be assessed as well. And it doesn't take a lot of time and effort just to tidy up your documents. And in a follow-up video, I'll talk to you about exactly how what the requirements are for formatting and how to present your document before you finally submit it, so you can get top marks for the presentation section. Now the last bullet point is engagement with the process, and this is the criterion E, your reflection section. And you've got to talk about the process, decision making, skills, and blah blah blah, and I'll talk about that in greater detail. So this is the one video in a series of videos about your extended essay. I hope it helps you. Good luck.